Now, all right, let's continue with that story of the chap.
Yeah, so I said, don't have a go at me because you're in a wheelchair, and every time you fart, you go up in the air. And there was a few of them, and at the end of it, he came up and he shook my hand. And bear in mind, in a wheelchair, obviously, you got to have some pretty strong arms and hands to, operate it. I don't know if he played volleyball in it or whatever, but anyway, I thought he was going to crush my hands. But with a tear in his eye, and he looked at me and he went, "Thank you, thank you." He said, "Today you have treated me as me, and even if I'd have had my legs, I would have given you the same shit. Thank you." And and I think there's a message in there for the politically correct brigade out there. Somebody in a wheelchair does not want to be treated like a disabled person. They want to be normal, and that means they want to be a part of something. They don't want to be treated differently, and I think that gets lost. And
Because
I
they
think that
already are so much. Yeah, sorry.
I think a beautiful explanation to that, and I know the Prince Harry's come under a lot of stick lately, but I've always been a fan of Prince, well, all the royalty, but specifically Prince Harry, in the sense of when he done that Invictus Games, and if you look at that sort of 20 odd thousand maybe in that arena, every single one of them affected by war, and all of them competing in those games to be one thing, and that is the very person that they started out in life at being. And as someone that entertains the Royal Marines regularly, and I look into their eyes and they're all fit and young, and some of them are going to end up possibly in the Invictus Games, or fighting for Queen and country and so forth. And it's a serious business, and so's getting better after you get wounded. And I'd like to think that me and mine, my fellow comedians, I do a lot for the British Forces Foundation, which is Prince Charles is a patron of, and it was started by Jim Davison and Margaret Thatcher when she was alive. Very important roles that they play.
Mm.
And Jim Davison now does his oh God, he'd kill me for not knowing the name of it. We'll do it. We'll give him a plug when I've looked it up. I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, he started another one. Funny enough, particularly for soldiers that have the PST, and sometimes it gets the better of them, and they end up getting arrested and end up in prison. And then of course they can't get a job, and then they can't get housed, and it's just a vicious circle. So behind our jokes, we do play a serious part in giving back.
Yeah.
So whatever is said on a stage to what really happens behind the scenes is normally two different
Sure.
kettles of
It's
fish.
the intention, your intentions behind it are purely for laughter and
Yeah,
entertainment. Yeah,
we just like
excellent.
sharing the love. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been fortunate enough actually to work at the Invictus Games as security. Um, and I had an opportunity. I was invited to come and say hello to Prince Harry. Okay. But unfortunately, word had got out. And the security bosses said, no chance, mate. Don't do it. You don't do it. But, a lot of respect. That event, working it 3 days, it gets very emotional. Um, you know, even if you're not into the whole thing, yeah. But it's that love and camaraderie in the event
Yeah.
itself is powerful.
Yeah.
So well done, Prince Harry. All right, and all the people who participate. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody, obviously, there's a lot of press around where he is at the moment in his life, but for me, if you go and look at him opening that first of Victor's games, you know, I don't know about anyone else, but as far as I'm concerned, if he was leading me and he went right charge, we're going that way over the top of the thing, I think I'd follow him. The man was amazing in that.
Mm.
And I hope that it all sorts itself out, whatever's going on right now. But that's
Yeah.
my opinion anyway.
All right, Adrian. Marvelous. So now let's get to the some of the gritty nitty gritty stuff, right? You have some connections in the underworld, friends, associates. Okay. And I'd love you to share what you can with us.
Well, how long have we got? No, I think to put it in perspective, in the same way that I don't sort of look in the mirror and thought I was Tom Cruise, I'm certainly not a gangster. Um, However, I think it's quite well documented over the years. You know, a lot of show busy people have been seen with, you know, whether it's Frank Sinatra, Barbara Windsor, to name but a few. So it just so happens that the underworld, I mean, they talk about it being an underworld. They're not really an underworld. They're just a group of people that know each other, I suppose. And But naturally, they own a lot of the clubs. You've already alluded to you were doing some security work, so you know they own the doors. So it's sort of natural journey to bump into these different characters, and I mean gangsterism, as in you know, or celebrity gangster, as my dear friend Dave Courtney alludes to, is a sort of media name. But nevertheless, these guys have lived. They've got their story. Whether it's Howard Marks with obviously his film Mr. Nice and the book Mr. Nice. If anybody hasn't read that, that's a good book to read. You know, Freddie Foreman, or Brown Bread Fred, as they call him. The Lambriano family are beautiful people. Obviously, you know, they've done their time. You know, Chris, you know, is a very religious character these days. Sadly, Tony, who I was the closest to for quite a few years, sadly passed away. And his brother, oh dear, mental block. What time's going on today? Anyway, you know, he runs a few pubs, and you know, they're nice. They're nice people, you know, and I suppose most of them are only villains when they go to work. The rest of the time, they're in the park, you know, pushing their grandchildren on the swings these days. Mm. But I think crime as we know it, you know, it's finished. I mean, the godfather of the underworld for many years was renowned to be Joey Pyle Sr. And one of his favourite phrases was, crime don't pay, but the hours are good, or something like that. So I guess that sums it up. You know, there's always a price to pay somewhere. And, you know, and I've seen a lot of them pay the price, you know. But no, I've had some funny experiences. One that sticks in my mind was we were going up to do a fundraiser for Charlie Bronson.
Okay, yeah.
To raise money for an appeal hearing for him to be released, because although he went in for quite a serious crime at the time, I think he's been in there over 30 years now. Now, obviously, I was a little bit dubious about him. I've never met him, obviously, because he's been away all them years, but I was sort of trying to work out, you know, because, well, this is a classic example of it, isn't it? You know, you are going to get asked about things that you've done. So you do need to think about, ideally, before you do them. So in that particular case, I met his mum and his sister. So his mum's not a spring chicken, she'd be the first to say, and she hadn't seen her little boy for 30 years. So I kind of thought to myself, well, yeah, all right, then I'll go and do the comparing of that event. But in a way, I'm doing it for the mum, really. Do you know what I mean? She didn't do anything wrong, really. Do you know what I mean? She probably told him off when he was little and sent him to bed early for, you know, if he didn't behave and all that. But it wasn't enough, you know. He's still in there. And to be fair to him, most of his extra time that he's accrued while he's been in there is because he finds it difficult if you get sort of you know, sort of paedophiles or villains that have, you know,
wrongins
children, yeah, then he's one of those people that makes sure that they regret the day they ever did XYZ, whatever it was. But of course, the downside for him is he gets another 3 years or 5 years or 4 years, and before you know where you are, he's been in there over 30 years. It might even be nearer 40 now.
Right.
Yeah, so that's that one.
Yep.
I think we were on our way up one day, and I got asked to pick up Freddie Foreman, so I went and picked him up, and he lives in North London, and so we were going up the M1, and there was one of these contrafoil systems where all the traffic came to a standstill, so we're all just sitting there. But the lane to the left, the slow lane, which was now the fast lane, because everybody was just going meow, 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 you know. So Freddie Foreman looked at me and he went, "Looks like you picked the wrong lane, boy." I said, "Yeah, sorry about that, Fred." And then it went all quiet. And he had a minder in the back of the car. He looked round at him and he said, "Of course," he said, "if we moved those cones," he said, "we could be on our way, couldn't we?" "Yeah, governor." And it went all quiet. And the next thing I know, he's jumped out of the car. Bear in mind, he's nearly 80 at this point. Moves the cones, stops the traffic on the M1 and called me through. He went, "Come on, H, come on in through." And, you know, these things, they're just surreal, aren't they? I mean, it's like you, if you'd rung me and you said, "Oh, are you having a good Sunday afternoon?" I go, yeah. I said, "Freddie Foreman's just stopped the traffic on the M1 and I'm just about to go." I mean, things like that are brilliant, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? They're just priceless. They happen. Yeah. You know, they're great fun and they're great things to talk about. I remember, and I've got to be careful how can I word this? And I remember we all finished up back in a hotel room, and I'd obviously, at the time, I was a single young man and ended up with the fruits of show business. And when I dropped him off later that day, the following day, he sort of walked away. Well, he said, "Thanks for a good weekend." He said, "You're good value, you." And he walked away. Then he turned round and he walked back. And he went, "Give me a hug." He went, "You're good value." He went, "But remind me," he said, "next time we go on one of these soirees," he said, "to get a room down the other end of the corridor." Oh dear. Sorry to anybody that finds that offensive, but I thought it was quite funny. Anyway, yeah. And he never forgot it. And every time I've seen him since, he always goes, mates, and talks about it, you know, like that. Yeah. But there you go. There's that one. Next one.
And okay, so you are you're pretty pally with Dave Courtney, is that right?
Yeah, and that happened.
You've invited me to a few of his parties, so I wouldn't have been there if it weren't for you.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. I think that once again, you know, not trying to show off or anything. I was on one of the first big events I'd done at a place in South London, just near the top of Brixton Hill, called Caesars. It's been knocked down now, but it was very much a really sort of important part of London life for many years. Ran by a guy called Fred Batt, who's a dear friend of mine. And I got asked to do a programme, which you can all Google, called Mystic Challenge. And as a result of doing that television programme, I got invited to a Mystic Night, which, for those that are not sure what Mystic Night is, comprises of what they call platform mediums that stand and talk to, say, 100, 200 people, and, you know, do sort of readings from the stage. It's fascinating to watch. I have no idea how they do it. I really don't, you know, whether someone's talking to them from the up in heaven or whether, I don't know. I have no idea, zero idea. All I know is it's fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
So I got invited to that, but on the one I went to, I thought it was a little bit depressing, really. So I sort of went, "Listen, why don't you let me do one, and we'll put some live entertainment on, and it'll be like a good movie, like, I don't know, like the Titanic, where you've got a bit of excitement, a bit of singing and dancing, a bit of a love story, a little bit of sadness, a bit of adventure. You're on the edge of your seat, and then when you go home, you've had the whole experience." And so that's what I did. And it was whilst the run up to the date that I got a phone call out of the blue that said, "Would you mind if Dave Courtney comes to your event?" So bear in mind, the place holds about 2,000 people. It's not a problem to me. I didn't have a clue who Dave Courtney was. I said, "Yeah, great, boom, boom, boom." So he came, and I was quite busy that night, but I was very much aware of the entourage he arrived with and the sort of magic that was happening around him. And he certainly brought a vibe to the event. And one of the mediums picked up on an event that he had happened to him, which was pretty spooky. He nearly got killed in Tenerife, ended up in a gunfight, and it was all a bit crazy. Great story in its own right. We can talk about that one another day if you want. But anyway, but it was probably about a week later. I was due on holiday, and I was at the airport. In those days when we used to just buy a book at the airport before you went, you good old W.H. Smith's. And I saw his face in a book, and so I just picked it up, and I went, "Oh, who's this bloke that came to my event?" And so I spent the week reading his book, and I've got to tell you, I didn't stop laughing all week. And so when I got back off holiday, I thought I must ring him up. And the guy that I was away with is a good friend of mine called Bouncy Castle Paul. Some of you know who that is. And I said to him, I had an idea. And he went, oh, no. Because normally when I say that, it means it's some sort of big change of directions about to unfold.
Yeah.
And at the time, I don't know if anyone remembers the Sunday Sport. And the Sunday Sport girls was a bit of a lads thing back in the days. And so we revamped it, called it Dave's Babes, and off we went.
All right.
And that was it. But to be honest with you, my association with him has always been very simple. It's been done on a handshake, and you know, he really kind of said, "What do you want from me?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I can't say I'm the best comedian, I guess, and you can't say you're the best gangster." So I said, "How about if I say you're the best gangster and you say I'm the best comedian, we just see how we go." And I've got to say, we're about 22 years in, and we've done some amazing events, massive events, 1,000-seater events.
Oh, wow.
We've done audiences with in the Circus Tavern,
Yeah.
you know, the what's name rooms down at Rochester Rooms. Sunday night at the London Palladium, we've done the first and last appearance of Ronnie Biggs. You know, the list is endless, and a lot of them are historical one-offs. And we've just done it for the buzz. We've never done it for money. We've just done it because we wanted to do it, or because it seemed like a funny thing to do on the day. And I think that's the secret of it. It's never really involved money. It's not, you know, it's just been about the buzz. It's been about the vibe. It's been about the publicity and the helping whoever it is who we're helping on the day. And I just sort of slipped in with that. I wanted to sing with a 17-piece orchestra, and no one's going to come along and give you a 17-piece orchestra unless you book your own one. Then you can obviously do what you want. So we've done things like that, you know.
Yeah, Dave Courtney, he certainly does have this aura and magic around him. Yeah. He was at your daughter's wedding. He turned up, I think, in a limo, proper shiny, you know. Fantastic. I've seen him at a few events with you, and he's certainly a personality. You know, there's not many. Forget the gangster side of things, but there's no people like him that can entertain a room, make everyone feel good. All right. So I like the guy. He's got a good heart. He's got something about him which is a rarity, and it's old school. You know,
I think, although I agree 100%, I think the policeman at the wedding that left a few minutes after he arrived, as I'm reliably reminded by my ex-wife from time to time. but there you go. You know, Mac, who my son-in-law, and Chico, they were in his first film, Hell to Pay.
Oh,
so
really?
he was there to support us all, really. Yeah. So
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair play. And more recently, we were chatting whilst you were in Spain.
Yeah, that was quite nice. Obviously, we've all had the lockdown, so I hadn't been on an aeroplane for a couple of years, and then they lifted various restrictions around getting on an aeroplane.
Yeah.
And my cousin, who had a bit of a serious operation, we didn't know how she was going to be. And then, of course, Charlie Breaker, who I've met in Kent some years earlier. We'll come back to that. But he was releasing a book.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it now. He'll kill me. Anyway.
Enough said.
Is that what it's called, is it? Yeah. Is that what it's called? Is it Enough Said? Right. The book, Enough Said. Go and get it. Charlie Breaker.
That's it.
He's on Facebook. I think you can get it. He send it out to you. Sign it even. Put what you want in it. No doubt. So, yeah, that gives you some good stories about sort of South London over the last 50 years. So anyway, yeah, so we were going around various bars and, you know, holiday resorts, and I'd do a little half hour, 45 minutes, and then we'd drift into a bit of gangster talk. People were able to ask questions about things that had happened, and then obviously people could come up and buy the book, and it was just a very laid back thing. Yeah. I mean, for me, it was helping an old pal. I mean, you're on your holidays, so to speak. So it wasn't really a money thing. It was really just about helping him, making sure my cousin was all right. And let's face it, most of the time you go on holiday, you're going to be sitting in a bar somewhere in a restaurant. So you might as well go and be treated having a bit of free dinner and a free drink and sit in a nice location as go and spend your money, mightn't you, Joe? That's it. Yeah, that's what I did.
But that was actually his book launch, wasn't it? Because the book had just come out, right?
Yeah. Oh no, make no mistake. There was a lot of, a few of the London faces that kind of live over there had all kind of come out of the woodwork to see him.
Right.
And some of the stories. I suppose I should share a story how you talked about hecklers earlier on and learning to be a comedian on your feet. And he used to run a pub called this is all online. You can check all this stuff out. He used to run a pub called the Belvedere in Peckham. And I'd arrived there on a Sunday lunchtime to do an event once. And I pulled up, I was outside and I sort of went in and the fellow went, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm a comedian." He went, "You better be bloody funny." And with that, he took me over to meet Charlie and he went, "This bloke reckons he's the comedian." So at which point Charlie went, "Oi, don't be rude to my friends." Sent him away. And he went, "Hello, mate, how are you?" And he pointed to a poster on the wall, which is must have had about 50 of London's finest faces in London at the time, all on a bridge in Tenerife. And he said, "Who do you know on there?" And I'll be honest with you, they all had sunglasses on them. They all had the same suits, and from a distance, I didn't recognise anybody really. I probably would now, to be fair, but I didn't then.
Yeah.
Probably going back to about 1995, something like that.
Okay.
And anyway, he went, "Right," he went, "Go on in, get going," and all the rest of it. And I'd only been going a little while, and there was a guy down the front. I remember him, he had one of these old Parker jackets on with the fur around it. And he sort of heckled me. So I sort of done a little gentle response. I said, "All right," I said, "I'll do this act on my own, like you have sex." And then he done it again. And I said, "When the girls come out, they have their own CUNT, they won't need you."
Yeah.
And then he done it again. And I looked, mate, I said, "Difference between you and me is," I said, "you come out once a year and I'm out every night of the week." I said, "Which loosely speaking makes me a pro. Like your mum." Within about a nanosecond of time, he jumped up, pulled a gun out. And time sort of stood still for a moment. And he was obviously screaming at me. Something to the effect of, "Don't ever go at my mum like that." And then all of a sudden, from the back of the room, which in those days was before the smoking bans, and there was a heavy sort of what do you call it, marijuana hanging in the room and everything, and sort of darkness. And as I looked into the distance, there was Charlie there like that. "Sit down, boy." And with that, the guy stuck the gun back in his trousers and sat down, and we all carried on. So there you go. There's an experience of Charlie Breaker and how we met. Obviously, I wasn't to know that it's about sort of, I don't know, all them years later or whatever it is. I was over there with my cousin. She was looking to buy a place, and the estate agent jumped in the car to take us to look at a few places. And she said, "Oh, what do you do?" And she said, "Well, I'm a nurse." He's a comedian. And then from that, he said, "What do you do about hecklers?" So that story tends to be one of my little throwaway stories because it kind of covers heckling pretty well. I think you'll agree.
Yes, that along with the stiletto story.
Yeah, it's up there, isn't it? It's a bit of an unforgettable one. Yeah. So anyway, I'd forgotten he'd moved there. So he went, "Oh no, Charlie lives around the corner." So that was it. So the next thing I know, he must have gone back to speak to everybody. And the next thing I know, I was going viral along the Costa Blanca. So yeah, it was good fun. So there you go. There's that little story. Go on in, ask us another one.
All right. So, well, really, for people nowadays, anyone who's aspiring to become a comedian, do you have any advice?
For most comedians now, you go along and you do what they call an open spot at a local comedy club. So that's probably the first place. You won't get paid. And you'll probably do something like give them 5 minutes, something like that. And you just sort of, you got to really go in there and have a baptism of fire. I mean, there are courses that you can do that you'll get online, and and everything else, but there isn't no substitute for just standing there and having a gun pulled at you. I can assure you. I'm not saying that you're going to have that experience. I'm just saying that I did, as I've had the experience with a guy in the wheelchair. But everybody goes through. You've got to go through these things. There is no real shortcut. Right. Obviously, it's more difficult for people to get their stage experience. A lot don't even really do the stage. They just do YouTube, as we're doing now, and that is their career, and they go off in that direction. And who knows? Maybe that is the answer. I was asked just recently, and I've just got involved in someone asking to do comedy-related sort of gags, and they just put them up.
Adrian,
about 4 a day.
Okay.
So I don't know. Yeah.
I've dabbled in a bit of stand-up comedy myself.
You never declared that before.
I know.
Young Sonny.
I've never told you because you're a comedian. It's like you're gonna have a different critique, right? But no, I did. I jumped in the deep end whilst I was here in Thailand.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
That's mad.
I will send you some. I'll send you some links.
Love it.
One was about 3.5 years ago, and the other one was about 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
That's
I'll
mad.
send you a link, and you can check it out.
So does that mean I'm going to see a mini Adrian on the stage then, or what?
Possibly. But I have my unique style, but I actually found the experience. All right, there was something exhilarating about it. Even you
Absolutely,
mess up,
it's a bug.
even
Oh, it's a
nobody
bug, all
laughs.
right.
Yeah, there's something very, very
Bug.
exhilarating.
Yeah, it's a bug.
Yes, so that is awesome. Also, you've been around, let's say, not yourself around the crime, but around shady, not your normal. You've been around some geezers, and you've seen a lot, and you've seen people have highs and lows, and you've seen people's journeys over the years. Any advice for people nowadays want to get into, thinking that it's cool to be a gangster, be a hard man?
Well, we've already touched on Dave Courtney, and I think there'll be people on there that'll have something to say about him. Whatever, we can talk about that another day, or you can take their questions and ask me them. Whatever it is that they want to know, we can talk about that another day. We've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And anybody out there that wants to ask anything, ask it, because I can assure you I will have the right answer. And I am talking about gangsterism. If I say the wrong thing, yeah, I could get into trouble. Okay, so yeah, so ask away in the comments below.
Yes.
But anyway, to answer that question though, and to coin one of Dave Courtney's phrases, forget it. Forget it. As he says, my background demonstrates they're watching you from the moon. They're probably listening to this conversation. Once again, a conversation for another day, but I've had undercover policemen come up alongside me, obviously because of the fact that you're mixing in certain circles and in different ways, but we'll talk about that another day. And I've got friends of mine, I suppose because of my lifestyle, I could just as easily be having dinner in one part of what might be described as an underworld circle, and in the evening I could be in what might be described as sort of quite high up within the establishment, some might call it. So I do hear and see a lot of things, and I can assure you that they are ahead of the game more than you realise. I've heard it said that people that are getting away with dealing drugs, narcotics, whatever you know it as, most of the time they are working for the authorities, and I know that from the people that have come up to me and asked for jobs, which I've given them the jobs. Do you know what I mean? And helped them, and we've kind of twigged it at some point in the proceedings. It doesn't bother me because I don't do anything. I'm a comedian.
Yep.
And it wouldn't matter to me if someone rings up and wants me to come and entertain a crowd of people or to get involved in a business opportunity of sorts. Then that's based on what I think on the day and the person that's standing in front of me, and it don't bother me whether they're black, white, pink, blue, green, lesbian, cross-gendered.
Yeah.
it's not. It doesn't. It's not relevant to me. You know.
Yeah.
Really doesn't bother me.
All right. So the message is stay away from crime. It's not worth it.
Well, I've got some good friends. They're doing 72 years between them at the moment,
Okay. Yeah.
and I think they're about 7 in as we speak.
Right.
So, yeah, not good. Wouldn't recommend it. It's
There's other ways in life to make a have a good life. It might take longer, but
listen.
along the way,
I haven't got a criminal record, and I'd like to think I've had a great life. You know, I've had money, lost money.
Yeah.
You can only sleep in one bed and watch one television at a time.
Yeah.
Now the question is, are you going to watch it a free man with your family
on a
around
bunk
you, and
bed,
your
yeah.
mum or your brother or your best bird or whatever, or are you going to sit in a little cell, watching Neighbours that you didn't want to watch? I think that's what it comes down to. So, and the other thing, it's not just about getting caught with a prison sentence; it's about the death and about the impact on other families. Someone actually that I met, and I am name dropping, but I think it's relevant because he's very much, when you watch any of his videos, he talks about it a lot, is the captain of the Gambino family, Michael Franchise, fantastic motivational speaker, captain of the, in the Colombo family in the 70s and 80s. He was earning something like about £8 million a week, I believe, at one time.
Right.
So, he's the better one. He's more qualified than me to say about what he the damage. But, he lost his sister, committed suicide. His brother died of drugs. His father was in prison for 50 years. His mother had to suffer. I mean, there's just a flash thing. And that is not, as it was said, even someone that just gets caught doing something that's relatively simple, if the police decide to use you as a tool, and you've been caught with something, what are you going to do? It's all right, we're going to give your wife 30 years, you're going to give your son 30 years, we're giving you 50 years, or you can help us. What do you want to do? Quick. I've nicked that from Dave. That's one of Dave's little sayings, but it's true. It happens, and that's it. So you're then, what you thought you was in charge, you're not in charge.
Yeah. All right, so let's just to wrap this up now. So thank you so much, Adrian, for speaking and sharing some stories with us. Really appreciate it.
Scratch the surface. I think that if you get some feedback from people people that want to ask questions, and feel free to ask them.
Yeah. On
one hand, we're going to have some doubting Thomases that probably won't believe certain things. That's cool as well. We can deal with that. And might be other people that have got other questions about things, and I'll do my best to answer them. If I don't answer it, I will explain why, and but I will endeavour to answer as near to enabling you, the person that's asked the question, to read between the lines.
Yes.
Because remember, we are dealing with people's lives, and if they're still alive and they're still trying to, maybe they may have stopped doing what they were doing, and they don't need to have me broadcasting something that may cause them aggravation or their family. So I have to respect that. But that aside, ask away. I've enjoyed doing it. Thank you for inviting me. I wish you well doing it.
Thank you so much. Do you have a message you want to share? Just a finishing off message for, let's say, the younger generation?
Once again, go see a comedian. Most comedians are nice people. They're helpful people.
Not for the comedy. Just general general advice in this new era.
If you wake up in the morning with an idea, and you think it's a good idea, do it. Because as much as I've had a great life, there's things I should have done. I'll just throw a couple of them. One of them was I can't stand Hoovers. I can't stand the smell of them. And I thought to myself, I know what I'm going to do. And I stuck a toilet smelly in the bloody Hoover, and that made it come out smelling nice. And if you go down the shops today, you'll see that you can buy any flavour you like to go in the Hoover. So I should have carried out on my thoughts. Yes. I'll give you another one. Telephones. I can remember being up in Wales on a gig, and we couldn't charge the phone. We only had one charger, 3 of us in the motor. I went, why don't we just have a battery? All you got to do is plug it in, have a
Yeah.
little battery charge so you can plug your phone in.
Yeah.
Why didn't I do that
Oh, and then
20 years
after
ago?
they
Why
put it in
didn't I
all the
do that?
cars.
Yeah, now they're everywhere. You could go and buy a little charger everywhere.
Yeah.
So they're just two examples of things that I should have done. That I don't. Don't get me wrong. There's lots of things I've thought of that I have done, which is why we're able to have these conversations.
Yeah, sure,
But
sure, sure.
so follow your heart. If you get an idea, go for it.
Yeah.
Find yourself a mentor. Find yourself more than one mentor. Find yourself 5 mentors. Take information depending what you're asking them. You know what you're doing. You know,
Yes.
lots of wives' tales that your mums, you know, used to say to you. A lot of these wives' tales a lot of them are true. These wives' tales. When
Yeah.
you actually grow up a little bit and you mature, you go, bloody hell, that was a good. That was a. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Things like that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Fantastic, Adrian. There's a lot there, a lot to digest. All right. And, yeah, we'll see how the comments come back, and, we can do a part 2 and elaborate on certain things in more detail.
well, may I be the worst to wish you all a happy Christmas and everything you wish yourselves for the new year. And I'll leave you with one last thought. May we all live to see the end of the DFS sale.